The President of the United States has just announced that he's cutting off all federal funding to blue states. This would be the collapse of the United States of America if he is not prevented from doing this. This is an illegal seizure of spending power. This is a collapse of federalism, and it is a constitutional coup. Infrastructure in states will come to a screeching halt, so construction workers will lose their jobs in mass. Road projects will end, transit projects will end, Medicaid care will be shut off, hospitals will close, nurses and doctors won't get paid, and nursing care facilities will shutter. School lunches, food assistance, public workers, and state budgets will completely collapse. This will cause the loss of life and irreparable harm to children, to the elderly, to veterans, to working families all across this country. And we will officially be an authoritarian government. Our Constitution will be null and void. This is serious, and we should take it serious. Congress needs to act now. Democrats and Republicans. He is destroying the United States of America as we know.
If you live in a blue state or city, you need to hear what Trump said today. This is a declaration of economic civil war.
Starting February 1st, we're not making any payments to sanctuary cities or states having sanctuary cities because they do everything possible to protect criminals at the expense of American citizens.
You heard it. February 1st, all federal funding is being cut to sanctuary cities and sanctuary states, aka blue states. States that are fighting against his policies. States that are fighting back against immigration enforcement. He's cutting off federal funding. But what does that federal funding go towards? I am so glad you asked. That goes towards the SNAP benefits, food stamps, food assistance, heating and utility assistance. Unemployment insurance is also subsidized by the federal government in some states. So they are literally going to try and starve the American people into submission. That's what this is. He thinks that by withholding federal funding, they're going to starve the American people into submission. We now know the date, February 1st, and I'm sure states are going to challenge this in court. I can almost guarantee that. What happens? To be determined, but we now have a date, February 1st. And by the way, that actually coincides with a potential government shutdown. You know we had another one of those coming at the end of the month, right? So pay attention. They're trying to starve us into submission, and we cannot let that happen.
Do you know why blue states are being targeted? It's because this administration can't stand the fact that blue states operate at a profit while red states run at a loss. So my question is, if blue states are such the problem based on what the Tangerine Twat Waffle and the Oval Circus is saying, allow them to become independent. Allow the blue states to be its own country. They operate independently. They conduct their own laws. They follow their own constitution, which is already in place. And we allow red states to do the exact same. That way, if immigrants or anybody wants to go to blue states, they are found to be safe because those will be the laws that are dictated within the blue states. And then the red states can operate and conduct everything the way they want to. Or is it because red states know that they fundamentally and financially can't support themselves without the blue states? Maybe that's exactly why the Tangerine Twat Waffle has such a problem with the blue states, because the blue states are a shining example of what it can be, what it would be if he wasn't mucking about trying to create civil unrest in all of these states. The truth is that he's trying to create and break down the systems in the blue states so that he can create civil unrest and then justify getting rid of the midterms as well as the election in 2028, because that's the end goal. It's not a matter of trying to get rid of the illegal immigrants because they don't really care about them. They've been monopolizing and using them for cheap labor for decades. Now it's a matter of trying to create a situation where they can suspend elections because there is civil unrest or there's martial law, and that way they can stay in power longer. And my question still remains, if blue states are the problem, then allow them to become independent. Allow them to succeed from the union and operate on their own, and red states can do their own thing. And then there's no problem anymore. And that way, the states that are going to thrive and succeed can do it on their own independently without having to profit off of or feed off of the other states. Because right now, red states feed off of all the blue states, and yet somehow are trying to thumb their nose, look down at the blue states as if they're the problem. So if the blue states are the problem we've all been hearing, that allow them to run independently, allow them to govern themselves, see exactly who the problem is. The proof will be in the pudding. Or is it because the red states, they know they financially can't support themselves and they need the blue states to keep them financially flush? Is that the problem? What do you guys think? Leave a comment.
Why is nobody talking about this yet? Donald Trump announced that he's going to cut off federal funding to any blue states that have sanctuary cities to protect immigrants. Here's what Trump announced, quote, effective February 1st, no more payments will be made by the federal government to states for their corrupt criminal protection centers known as sanctuary cities. All they do is breed crime and violence. If states want them, they will have to pay for them. Folks, I'm in California, which is one of the many states Trump is talking about here because we have sanctuary cities, but that's not what this is about. Donald Trump knows he's actually going after his political rivals, and he's going after the 40 million plus American citizens who live in California who oppose him. By the way, California is the fourth largest economy in the world, larger than most countries around the world. What are we getting out of this social contract? Why are we sending billions and billions of dollars to the federal government to keep the lights on for red states across the country that depend on California's money? And what do we get in return? ICE agents going around our communities, disrupting our economy and upending people's lives. This is a bad deal for California. And honestly, Governor Newsom, you got nothing to lose at this point. You're not running for re-election. Stop sending money outwards to the federal government. Just stop. Just cut it all off.
They wanted to redistrict so they could get more Republican seats. And so the Democrats said, fine, we'll just redistrict too and meet you where you are. Then they wanted to go into all kinds of states and cities, for example, what we're seeing in Minnesota right now, and terrorize citizens and act like unlawful rent-a-cops so that people would react and rise up and violence would ensue. And that didn't work either. So now this is where we are. We are learning as of this morning, this was several hours ago, forgive me, I had to do some research to react. But Donald Trump, early this morning, sent out on Truth Social, effective February 1st, no more payments will be made by the federal government to states for their corrupt criminal protection centers known as sanctuary cities. All they do is breed crime and violence. If states want them, they will have to pay for them. Make America great again. So what does this look like? If your state is chosen as one of these states that they are no longer going to federally fund, number one, people are going to lose their jobs almost immediately. Who are these people? It's not going to be the state politicians. It's going to be the residents of the state. Number one, to feel the impact quickest will be healthcare workers. The timeline on that is weeks and sometimes just days. Those that will be impacted are community health clinics. Nursing staff will be laid off, medical assistants, behavioral health counselors. We will also see impacts in terms of public hospitals. ER support staff will be reduced or gotten rid of completely. Social workers and outreach coordinators. Why is this going to happen? Because many clinics operate on thin margins and rely on federal Medicaid reimbursements and HRSA grants. And if payments are frozen or delayed, layoffs have to happen. The second group of people who will be impacted are childcare and early education workers. In terms of a timeline, they will have just weeks before they lose their jobs. Head Start teachers and aides, which that program has already been defunded in many different ways, will be impacted. Early childhood special education staff and program administrators. Why is this going to happen? Because programs like Head Start and Child Care Development Block Grants are federally funded but locally administered, which means that interruptions will impact payroll abilities. When that happens, because childcare is so key when it comes to things like parents working, well, parents will be now scrambling to find childcare and or appropriate services, especially in the case of having a child with special needs. Number three to be impacted, housing and homelessness services staff. The timeline for this is a bit longer. It will take weeks to a few months for them to lose their jobs. Who will lose their jobs in this industry? The shelter staff, case managers, outreach workers, housing placement coordinators. And why is this? Because the HUD department grants fund salaries directly. So if grant disbursements pause, nonprofit cuts staff and they cut them quickly. What does this mean for people who are unhoused? It means that they will not have a place to go. There will be no beds for them, and they will be freezing or sweating their asses off in the streets, which are extremely dangerous and put them at risk for additional things like being mugged, being assaulted, etc. Area number 4, transportation and infrastructure workers. These are also going to include short-term contractors. The timeline for this, again, a little bit longer, but not by much, 1 to 3 months, those jobs will be eliminated. Construction workers on federally funded highway projects, transit system planners, and environmental review consultants. Why? Because federal transportation dollars are project-based, and when the funds freeze, a number of things happen. Contracts pause, crews are laid off, and projects stall mid-build. So if you're in an area like I-4 in Florida where I used to live, and there is massive construction, it's going to pause completely. It will look like a zombie apocalypse. Workers will be gone, no more work, construction left just as it is. The last group is state and local government employees. So these are only going to be impacted in terms of select departments. Timeline here is months, but inevitable if unresolved. It's going to have to happen if they can't come to a quick resolution. So those impacted would be public health analysts, environmental inspectors, grant administrators, and emergency preparedness staff, which is huge, especially as we get into the summer and the fall when we're looking at massive hurricanes and other types of storms. Why does this happen? Because their salaries are partially federally reimbursed. What does this mean in addition to job loss? What will residents of a given state who's in this situation experience? Within weeks, there will be longer ER wait times, fewer clinic appointments, mental health services will be delayed or scaled back, and there will be delays in substance use treatment. Anyone who is an alcoholic or an addict who is working in a federally funded space to get clean and sober, it's going to be less accessible. Who's going to be hit the hardest? It's going to be seniors, residents with disabilities, low-income families, and rural communities, which, by the way, typically vote red, even in blue states. And it should be noted, too, that the fear of funding loss can actually cause healthcare providers to stop accepting new Medicaid patients. So if you're on Medicaid, they might just turn you away because they don't know what's going to happen. We got to talk about food, and we got to talk about housing. So within the first couple of months of this happening, there would be a reduction in SNAP outreach and enrollment help, fewer food pantry hours, and schools would struggle to administer their free food programs. And having worked in Title I schools where there are lots of students from socioeconomic statuses that are on the lower end, we would give them backpacks of food if they needed it. That can't happen anymore. Residents don't always lose their benefits instantly, it should be noted, but access certainly becomes harder. Let's talk about housing. Housing instability increases. So within months, you would have a slower processing for housing vouchers. Eviction prevention programs would pause. More and more people would become unhoused. And emergency rental assistance completely dries up, which leads to more evictions, more encampments, homeless encampments, and overcrowded shelters. Transportation obviously gets worse as well. I live in the Philadelphia area. I'm thinking immediately about SEPTA. So within months, you will have people who rely on public transportation to get to work losing their jobs. And that's because there will be delayed transit upgrades, reduced bus and train frequency, and safety repairs are postponed, which makes traveling via public transportation simply more dangerous. Now let's talk about education, something that impacts almost everyone in some capacity. Within one calendar school year, cuts to special education support, English language learner services, and school counselors would happen. You'd also have after school and summer programs canceled. You would see things like arts and sports disappear completely. So schools may keep classrooms open, but support services and extracurriculars, gone. Let's do a political reality check. If this actually occurs, which I don't know. I take everything they say as the truth until I am proven otherwise at this point. If this happens, this is a constitutional crisis, number one. So the states are going to sue. You're going to see that happen within hours. They will file those lawsuits. They'll be ready to go, especially now that he's announced February 1st. Courts will likely see emergency injunctions. And regardless, I mean, damage is going to start before courts can even address this. And add on top of that the fact that this regime does not follow the law, which is actually, something that probably should have been said on the front end of this conversation. Remember, redistricting didn't work. Violence isn't working because we know the game. We cannot respond that way. And so what they're going to do is they are going to do what we should have done a long time ago, which is cut off the funds. Now is going to be the time that you see Americans rise up, period, because they will have their backs against the wall.
Trump has now threatened blue states, saying that on February 1st, all federal funding will be cut to these states simply for having sanctuary cities. And what a sanctuary city is a city that will not hand over information about its residents to immigration forces, nor will allow any state funding to go towards these operations. And he is calling these cities dangerous and criminal. Therefore, they do not deserve federal funding anymore, and nor does their entire state. Here are the states included in that: California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, District of Columbia, Illinois, Minnesota, New York, Oregon, Rhode Island, Vermont, and Washington. Let me know if you notice a trend about these states. Last week, Trump also tried to freeze $10 billion in childcare and family assistance programs in 5 Democratic states: California, Colorado, Illinois, Minnesota, and New York. Luckily, this was blocked by a district court judge, but only temporarily. I don't know if you remember this saying from history class, but no